Welcome to Mental Health Matters. This is Tom Duff, Executive Director, St. Louis Counseling, and licensed clinical social worker. So I'm a therapist at heart. Once again, we are very excited to have another episode to share a little bit about mental health, some tips and techniques, some ways of coping, and just to be able to have a conversation to make mental health okay. So often we get so worried about talking about mental health or we steer clear of it. We fail to check in with people, but this podcast hopefully will help ease the uncomfortable parts of that. Also, check us out at stlouiscounseling.org. That's Saint spelled out, louiscounseling.org. Also, I'll do a kind of a shameless plug as well. Giving Tuesday is next week. So that is November 27th, Worldwide Day of Giving to Nonprofits. My agency, St. Louis Counseling, is looking to have some matches of $1,300. Our board of directors has put up $1,300, which will give a full course of treatment for individuals, to 12 free sessions for individuals in need of therapy. If you need more than 12 sessions, we'll keep working with you after that because we believe in helping the client wherever they're at. But yeah, we're looking for matches. You can reach out to us on our website, which I already said, stlouiscounseling.org. Also, you can email Debbie Dugan, and that's Dugan, Dugan, at ccstl.org. And by all means, if you're listening to this podcast, feel free to keep sharing it with others. You can download it, of course, but also you can go to our website, go to social media, find St. Louis Counseling on Twitter or Facebook, and share the knowledge. So, as always, we have interesting guests join us on our Mental Health Matters podcast. And today is no exception. We have Gregg Sansone with us, St. Louis native. Hello, Gregg. How are you?
Hi, Tom. I'm fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. We are so glad to have you here on Thanksgiving week. Well, first of all, what is your favorite go-to Thanksgiving meal? Or not meal, but like what part of the meal? What's your thing?
Well, my mom is a complete master at it. My dad loves food. He loves to dine. And so we all benefit from that. I love her homemade dressing, which is, okay, now you're really getting me hungry.
Yeah, we're going now. We're going.
This is not good. Homemade dressing, and she has so many wonderful things, but that's the number one, and the sweet potatoes. I'm going to forget why I'm here. And let's just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, those are your go-to.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, mine's like mashed potatoes. There's something about my mom's
Lord,
mashed potatoes.
Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah, that. And, of course, turkey goes a long ways, of course.
Especially if it's moist.
Yeah, oh, beautiful, beautiful. And, this year, my Thanksgiving's extra special because I'm a Bears fan, and we have Bears and Lions kicking off today. So I'm pretty excited, and the Bears are actually relevant again. So it's
nice
a happy
weather
day.
for it.
Yeah. So, Gregg, we're having you on the show today because you have a great story. You've written an excellent book as well, but you're going to talk to us a little bit about OCD.
Yeah.
And kind of your life with that and how you kind of came to be of a greater understanding of it and all the while being successful and maintaining yourself. So I guess when did you first kind of realize that OCD was part of your life?
Well, first of all, I thoroughly enjoy talking about this. There's nothing more near and dear to my heart than this, and more close to me. I learned before that if I want to find out what I'm passionate about, look at your pain. And so this is an area of pain. It happened when I was 18 years old, when it came into my life out of nowhere. I'm 55 now. And I was 18 and driving back to school my second semester at Mizzou, my first year of college, and driving back, and I had my friend in the car with me, and his mom had just passed, and we had had some tough family stuff going on, and this incredible depression came over me, deep feeling in the pit of my stomach. I can still remember the hill on the highway coming over from 270 and 367 Bellefontaine Road where he lived, where I picked him up. How about that?
Yeah, that's a memory right
37
there.
years ago. I remember it vividly. And my life changed ever since then. It was a deep depression, the emptiness in the pit of my stomach. It felt very hollow, very empty. And coming from, a family with six of us, and we're all into sports and weightlifting and all that, I did everything I could to fight back the tears that I had. It felt like, if I had to say, a deep, profound homesickness, if you will, and a very sad, dark, lonely, depressed place. Real exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And
Happy
that-
Thanksgiving week. But hey, you're sharing it. That's what's most important.
You're darn right. And
Yeah.
a lot of people suffer at this time, and boy, do I want to reach them. So I'm an open book. So coming up there, and this had this sadness, and I thought, I got to do this whole semester again at Mizzou, and I don't want to, and da 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 da, and it was dark, it was sad, dreary, empty. Got to school, and it didn't leave, and it was kind of a panicky feeling, and then like an anxiety because I was so down, and then the weird thoughts started, which was really represented my OCD, cognitive OCD, these, pure OCD, which is a pure-o, which is a misnomer because there are compulsions with cognitive OCD, with the thinking, and then the compulsions are also thinking. Just because they're not behavioral, you don't wash your hands, doesn't mean you're not occupied in your head doing circular reasoning, ritualizing, incredibly ruining your life for 25 years, as I pretty much did. Anyway, these weird thoughts. What if something fell out of the sky and hit me? It's like, where did that one come from?
Yeah.
Who's there? Who's there is the right question.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you reason that away? And I've learned later as I'm in, and you stop me anytime you want.
Oh no, you keep going. You
I'll
keep
talk
going.
for 2 days.
No, this is what we want people to understand it, and you're doing such a good job of describing it. So that's awesome.
Okay. And I've learned later in therapy, which I'm still in, by the way, and I love therapy.
2 thumbs up for therapy.
Oh,
Yes.
my Lord. And I also take medicine, a very mild dose, less and less. I do reduce it, but it's been 25 years, and I'm in therapy. And what I learned is that probably when I went away to school, like a lot of people do, and I know a lot of listeners can relate to this, when they go away to college, parents have heard, went away to college and came back and wasn't the same.
Yes.
And you can attest to this more than I can. There's something about that 18 to 24-year-old age gap. I think it's the last stage of physical growth of the brain, something like that.
Age 25, the brain basically fully develops. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if something's going to show up that hasn't, it will then, is what I've heard. And so you go away to college. What I think happened is, and you've got autonomy, and you're trying to find your way, and you're away from your safety, your home. So if you're kind of sheltered like I was, then autonomy is not your strong suit. Okay? Yeah. And so I had these unusual thoughts coming. You didn't know what to do with them. They were as foreign as a language, literally. And so they would come to me, and I didn't know what it was or how it was. And it was, somebody said OCD popped. So I started to have anxious, neurotic thoughts. Now, had I been able to go to someone at that time and not feel shameful about it, not feel isolated about it, not feel helpless and hopeless about it, I wouldn't have carried it.
You've got it out at that point.
Yes, our secrets are as sick as we are. And there it was.
So you talk about that. So, you mentioned you're 55. I'm a little bit younger, but not much. But, with stigma, and for our age and older, right, that seemed to be so. You would not tell people you had a mental health condition, first of all, right? And you also mentioned being a male, sports. We have this persona. We don't want to show we're weak or anything. So for you, what did it take for you to be open about it and get to that point?
I wish I had something beautiful to say about that. But what got me to be open about it was repeatedly getting beat on by it. I was proud, and I did not want to admit it. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was scared. There was no awakening in me that said, oh, being open is going to do it. I need to be open. No. I was literally forced into it. So if we go to what created that opening, I got married, and when I was married at about 26, 27 years old, I'd been married 4 years, got married very young. We went to marriage counseling, And can you imagine that? With
Had
condition,
little things to work through,
Yeah,
right?
a few things to
That
work
was good.
through.
You went to marriage counseling.
yeah, and but it was more about our relationship. But then I felt comfortable with this guy, and I started to share some of these embarrassing things. First time, 18, I was 26, 27, eight or so years. A secret for 8 or so years. Now, you, as a therapist, know that is a recipe for of disorder.
Yeah, and just stress,
And
emotional.
and distress,
Yeah.
and you create neural pathways in your brain or something that creates a sick reasoning, if you will.
Yep, yep.
There I was.
You get lost in it.
Yeah, and it becomes your norm. Resistance, shame, all the opposites of what you guys work on with folks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I had lived that. So anyway, where am I going here? So resistance and shame. So what happened was I went to this therapist and we started talking. Oh, first of all, my first wife, I got divorced and got remarried 5 years ago. But I was able to open up with her about this stuff, which was good. Now, that was at about 21, 22. This stuff started at 18. So I started to open up to her, felt safe with that. And but I didn't really get any real help. Went to this therapist, and then I said to my wife at that time, I said, I want to talk to him by myself, and would you go out?
And she's like, "Oh, great, you're going to talk about me?" But
Probably,
really, it was
yeah,
about
yeah,
you, right?
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
She probably was saying that, and because I would have thought that, and this was dying to come out of me. And this is not a plug for me, what I'm going to say right now. This is not a plug, but I really mean this for those that are suffering. Had I at that time known somebody like me now, with what I was going through then, I would have thanked God above, because I swear to you, I didn't think there was any help. And I was ashamed, and I was embarrassed, and I thought if you knew my thoughts, you'd put me in a nut house. And so I carried that shame and embarrassment for so long, since 18 years old. And now I'm out trying to share my story and help people, and I see the relief in their eyes, and I can see it. I remember it with me when I was that age, that, oh my God, it's okay. And that's all it is.
And there's so many more people out there like you as well. That's the other thing to realize.
And that's all it is. It's okay. What's okay? It's okay that you feel screwed up. That's about 90% of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But the shame and embarrassment and isolation. So anyway, she went out, and I started to tell him some things, and he didn't lock me up. I swear to you, that was my concern. I was going to get locked up. Hospitalized. Nutty thoughts.
Away.
What are you worried about? This guy's
Yep.
this guy's unstable. That was my worst word I ever heard, was unstable. I couldn't study in college. I couldn't study because I was occupied with these irrational fears. Something falling out of the sky and hitting me. What if I don't sleep tonight? What if I have a bad dream when I go to sleep? What if God doesn't love me? What if that number on that license plate was a sign from God that it's a superstitious, that He really, I'm in sin with God, and Catholicism and scrupulosity was a big part of my OCD.
Oh,
It was a big theme for me. I grew up in a real strict Catholic family. It did beautiful things and all of that. I was a super sensitive child, most sensitive in our family, most emotional. My younger brother in our family meetings, I'll never forget it. He said he went to SLU, and he was younger than me. And he said, my dad said, "Okay, what's everybody upset about?" And he goes, "Well, I'm tired. I get tired of that Gregg cries all the time." Okay,
like,
you can see I'm over my ego a little bit here by sharing this, but not really, but a little bit. That Gregg cries all the time, and I started crying.
Oh, right then and there.
Isn't that lovely?
On cue.
On cue.
Yeah.
So my point is, looking back at this as a 55-year-old adult now, I was very sensitive, and I was very vigilant, overly vigilant, common denominators for OCD and anxiety disorders. And I took things literal. And so, unfortunately, at that time, Catholicism was a very, very good fodder for my OCD. At least in the way I interpreted it. I actually spent a year in the seminary when I was 19.
Really?
Went into Cardinal Glennon Seminary. And then, so I was always very serious about that stuff. And now I would say that I'm not religious, but I'm incredibly spiritual, and love connecting with people's hearts. That's pretty much where I'm at.
In that cognitive side, of OCD, and you kind of describe some of those thoughts. But for people out there that may be, one, curious about just what it is in general, and maybe some people out there are like, wow, I wonder if I have that. But it's not being able to let go of those, right? It's
Yes,
that
sir.
repetition that's over and over again, right?
100%.
So, and you know, I think OCD sometimes you hear that a lot, just those three letters, and people just generalize that to a lot of different things. Oh, you know, that person's OCD. They wash their hands a lot, or that person over there, they're so organized. They're just OCD. But the reality is, there's some real clinical issues with that people just don't realize. So, you know, washing of the hands, that's another type of OCD, right? Compared to what you dealt with. But there's similarities with not being able to let go of that. And so sometimes certain types of therapies, right, help. Medication helps. But for you, exposure response.
You nailed it.
Yeah, that was something that helped you out.
That was a beautiful day in my life when I got introduced to that. You know, they say the best moments of your life, what are they? My son being born and being married, and I can say being exposed to ERP, exposure response prevention, being learned about that. Dr. Stephen Phillipson out in New York City, OCDonline.com, he's the one who I started Skyping him and doing therapy. It's $250 an hour, and this was about 15 years ago, so it wasn't cheap. And insurance
Better
didn't
know
cover
what
it.
he's doing. Yeah.
And he did.
Nice.
And he turned me on to this stuff. And I remember telling him these weird thoughts I had and that freaked me out and kept me up. I was in a perpetual state of anxiety, really. I mean, you know, everybody's, oh, you go to sleep at night and you get free from it. That was my worst time because then I was alone.
And you're alone into your thoughts.
Yeah, man.
And so the emotional strain of that as well, right? Because, you know, there's jobs, you know, I've had jobs with physical labor, right? And I'm tired afterwards. But sometimes dealing with the emotional side just drains you. I bet you were drained a lot.
Drained. And the worst part is not rested, not restful, not feeling like I wanted to rest or sleep. I couldn't. It was a terrible situation. I'm very grateful that it happened now. I can't believe I'm saying I don't need it to happen anymore. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it happened now because it is the way that I'm able to connect with people. And it's so rewarding to see people's lives change. In our groups, we have groups every Tuesday night for 8 years now through Centerpoint Hospital. Dr. Asfar Malik, we started up the volunteer program with him out there in Weldon Springs, and we meet in Creve Coeur Tuesday evening, 6:30 to 8, 763 South New Ballas Road, Suite 130. It's a free group, OCD anxiety, and it also has depression in it, which goes with it. But yeah, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, exposure. No, that's good. That's good. We want people to know where to get help at.
Okay.
But, you know, with exposure response prevention, what would be what was one of the exercises you had to do with yourself?
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. See these bad boys right here?
Yeah.
3x5 index cards. Stephen Phillipson would say, he said to me, okay, Greg, what I want you to do is I want you to carry around a little golfer's pencil. You know what a golf pencil is? I said, yeah. And he said, and some 3x5 cards. And I want you to capture your distressing thoughts. Game changer. I said, what? All I'm trying to do is get away from these things for 25 years.
You want me to do what?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you know what's weird, Tom, is that there was something with the second he said it, something inside me smiled. I swear to you. I felt it. I was like, that's the one thing I haven't tried. Wow. I was trying to beat it. I was trying to resist it. An anxiety specialist, Reed Wilson on anxieties.com, he says the common denominator for anybody with an anxiety disorder, they all have the same problem. They're resisting. By me trying to get away from it, I was resisting. When this guy said, get an index card and a golf pencil, capture your horrific, distressing, anxiety-provoking thoughts that make your knees buckle, capture those for me and get them and write them down exactly as your brain delivers it to you in as much incredible, gruesome detail as you can. 50% freedom just showed up.
Wow. Amazing.
Just hearing that.
So at that
here they
point,
are. I got loads of
that's
them.
a lot of them right
this
there.
This is nothing.
Yeah.
This is nothing. I've got 100 times this amount. I've got a big old grocery bag of them.
Ready. So
Well, just the things I've done.
Yep.
And my wife now, she said, keep everything. Because it's like, oh, this is done. Chuck it.
Yeah.
No. I got boxes and boxes of stuff. But here it is. You want to know my crazy mind? Here we go.
And so for you, that put it in focus to where then you could look at those afterwards and figure like, wait a minute, is that irrational? Is that rational?
Well, not exactly. That was the end result, yes. But what I was supposed to do, the next step was to read that horrible thought, capture it, and then here you go. Read it over and over again. He said to me, I want you to read this thing 10 times a day with meaning. Each time you read it, pause 10 to 15 seconds after you read it. With meaning. Don't protect yourself. Read it and feel the impact, the distress that it has on you. Accept that. There it is, accepting the distress.
Acceptance.
That's what made it go away. Accepting the feeling. We're all trying to get away from the feeling. That's what perpetuates it. Accept the distress. Accept the distress. 10, 15 seconds. Then when you notice it start to die again, read it again. Up to 10 times and do that 3 times a day. 3 times a day. Exposing. These are exposures. Different forms of exposures. You're exposing yourself to the threat, and you're preventing yourself from responding like you normally do with a compulsion to protect yourself from it. Before, I would have a thought, and I'd say, oh, no, that doesn't mean that. That thought, I'm fine. Protecting. I'm feeding it. Now I have the thought, and it's like, oh, let me write you down. Thank you for sharing. Totally new skill, new language. You may as well have taught me Greek. But it did it.
So for you, that's the cognitive side, right, of exposure. So for someone, which it almost in a way feel harder with some of that. So if somebody's afraid of germs in some sense, public restrooms, pretty dirty place usually, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be exposed to germs, maybe you go into a bathroom in a public restroom. Maybe you even touch the toilet seat because you're exposing yourself to that worst fear of getting germs.
Yeah.
But I would think the cognitive side would be even more because all the thoughts that could come in.
Much more difficult to get to. That's why for so long it was believed in the medical therapist community that there are no compulsions. It's just thoughts because there's no visible compulsions. But it is tougher. It is tougher because they're harder to get to, and they're harder to decipher. They're convoluted, and you don't even know. A big part of my recovery has been just discovering what's going on in my head. It's hard to see it. Awareness is not there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, as a therapist, a lot of us don't live in a state of awareness. We live in a state of denial. And the part about that, good, bad, or indifferent, is denial can work.
Yeah. You get through a lot of...
We get through.
Yeah. Get through a lot of life with denying some things.
I've also learned there's something to be said for denial. There's something to be said for it. To be at a given point in your life, you can't be 100% dead on, burying everything that's unhealthy in your life with awareness every moment of the day. I mean, if you can, you're like a mystic, I guess.
Yeah, and
it's a beautiful place to be. I've hit it a couple times, but it doesn't stay too long.
You can't stay in our world today with technology and everything else.
And you don't have to, right? You don't have to.
Exactly.
But it's a neat road to embark on.
So do you see, well, I think the other thing to point out, age 18, you started discovering this, right? 55. Now you've had a pretty successful life, right?
Yes.
And family.
Unfortunate,
So
yes.
one, right, you can have a mental health issue and something as significant as this and still be successful.
Yeah.
And you can make it. Right.
Damn right. Now you're going to get me real fired up.
All right.
Okay.
That's what we want.
All right. Well, I haven't even been fired up yet, but this is going to do it. So to that, yes, and more yes. That's the message that I want to get out there so profoundly and more on a powerful level. I'm trying to restructure my business and my life so that I can do this 100%. Talking to my wife about it because this is where my heart's pulling me. Yes, people need to know that OCD and anxiety disorders can absolutely 100% propel you to success. You know it yourself as a therapist. Anxiety is tremendous energy. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Tremendous.
Yeah. And trying to control it? Oh, good Lord.
And OCD is energy. If you can learn to channel, which is not easy, it doesn't happen overnight, but if you can learn to channel that energy, tremendous success. So my family is Sansone Group, commercial real estate and all that. Now here's the real story behind this. And it's a family business. A lot of my siblings were in the business, and a lot still are. I never was. At this time in my life when this was going on, I was fighting to get out of OCD. I was fighting for my independence from OCD. I was fighting for autonomy. What is OCD? You have no autonomy. I needed freedom. I was in a war. And everyone out there that's suffering with OCD right now, you are in a war. And anyone that tries to make light of it is missing the boat. You must be a warrior for recovery. We're in a war, frontline soldiers, because you feel like you're dying when your specific threat comes to your mind. So I felt like I was in a war, and I didn't want to be, I wanted to do my own thing, even though it scared the daylights out of me. So I started my own businesses from early on: driveway sealing, chimney cleaning, snow removal, firewood delivery. Then eventually I graduated into being able to buy a junky house, fix it, and sell it. And then I did 15 of those with a friend, but I did this cold calling, driveway sealing for 8 years, and I would call people cold, and they'd reject me and hang up on me. And I was breaking, but when I was breaking, wow, I just thought of this rhyme. I'm not a rhymester, but I was waking. I was.
That's a rap. That's not a rhyme. Yeah, we can rap now. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
I was breaking. I was waking. But what happened was I was breaking, and when that happened, I was getting stronger and coming into me more, and I started to dig it. I started to like it. So what I say. And I became successful. I channeled my energies, and eventually I got into a commercial property with a friend that I was 17% ownership, which I'm 100% owner today, an 18-acre property out in North County, North Oaks Plaza. It's got 50 businesses, 300,000 square feet of bricks and mortar, and I've done some developments around it. And it's been a wonderful thing, and I've been very fortunate, and I'm very grateful. I don't attribute this success to my abilities and talent. I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. But my point is, anybody that has this, don't think you're less than. I tell people at group, don't think I want to get over this so I can be normal like other people. That isn't the deal. I promise you it's not the deal. It's not about getting normal with other people, because when you overcome an anxiety disorder, your greatest fears, your monsters, your ghosts, your demons within in your own basement, you develop a courage and a sense of self that the vast majority of the public doesn't have. Because they don't have to go there always.
Yeah, you know yourself better than the majority of the population.
Yeah. So it's not about me just getting like the norm that doesn't have these. That is a notion that I hope therapy starts to do away with, because it's really not about becoming like everyone else and getting as well as them. You take on a new dimension. It's like an artist, you know?
Yes.
Does an artist become a good businessman in a businessman sense? You see, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I told you I'm going to ramble.
Well, is there a part of you? So, because you're conquering it, right? You're managing it. Like you said, you go get rid of all those cards. You know, you're doing well. Yeah. But is there a part of you that gets excited when something? A challenge comes up because you are confident that you will get past it now?
Yes, sir.
Like, do you like to be kind of challenged?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that thought comes into your head and you're like, I can do this. Is there a part of like excitement?
You nailed it.
Really?
Did you play sports?
I've dabbled in some things.
I can tell because you understand that. Yeah, a lot of people don't ask that question. They don't see that. You're 100% right. And that's the benefit, the gift that you don't expect. It'll show up. Once you get involved in it, you then become excited by the challenge. It's like a surfer riding the wave.
I did not surf, but anyway.
I didn't either. Yeah. But I can imagine.
Yeah.
But you nailed it.
Yep.
That's exactly what it is. You do get excited. You do get pumped. Not every time. Some days are bad. Some days you got allergies. Some days you got sinus. Some days you feel kind of down. Some days you may have eaten something the day before. You don't feel right. But a tremendous amount of the time, when I feel challenged, I'm like, okay, a breakthrough's coming.
Yeah.
I just need to start writing a little bit
That's awesome.
and get in there.
Mm-hmm.
I used to hide from it. Now it's about uncovering it, exposing it. What's the deepest, darkest I can go? Hello.
The true self right there. Get down to the true
Buddy,
self.
that was opposite. What's the deepest, darkest I can go is my motto now. I mean, not trying to make myself crazy or anything.
No.
But what's there?
Yep.
What's
Uncover
there? Uncovering it.
Yep.
And sometimes, for all the people that are suffering out there, when I do this process, it's complete and total beauty.
Success.
And
for
peace-
each person is different.
And peace is sometimes inside me.
peace.
That's what I mean. It's a peace. It's a and I'm not talking religion, but it's a spiritual place of almost like compared to like solitude in nature, of an empty kind of. Okay, is there a cloud? Because I'm going to float on it.
yeah.
Kind of
Yeah, exactly.
feeling.
Exactly. One with yourself, so to speak.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So, over the years, you've seen, you mentioned you've seen therapists.
Oh yeah.
What would you look for if you had to tell somebody, what to look for in a therapist if they were thinking about going out and looking and to get help with anything, but what would you recommend somebody look for in a good therapist?
Yes, I would recommend. I love that question because I gave a whole talk on that. What I would recommend in a good therapist is a number of things, but the first thing that comes to my mind from my experience is don't get a know-it-all. There are some therapists, and they're becoming less and less, thank God. There are some therapists out there that really, really believe that are on ego trips. Not nearly as many as I ran into before. It's changing. But they're on ego trips, that they're the master of what you're going through. And I was a guy who was very participatory in my recovery, and I worked, and I had a lot to say about it. I was really going there. And it made me worse when certain therapists would diminish what I have to say because it didn't fit the book. The book is not made. The book should not be made for every sufferer. The book should be made from every sufferer.
Agreed.
And that's a big book that keeps being written.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because everybody's experience is different.
Thank you. It doesn't stop being written. You guys know in your field it's not a science, an exact science. You continue to learn. I mean, look at the history of it from 50 years ago to now.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
So where's the best way to learn? To me, it sounds like from the person who's going through it. So what I would say is get a therapist that will listen to you.
So good listening.
Get an OCD specialist that understands ERP. Exposure. Don't get somebody who tries to make you feel good with anxiety. There's no way to get out by feeling good. You got to actually feel worse to get out. But you'll be motivated to do it. It's weird.
Facing it, yeah.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, do you ever get pumped or challenged? Yes. Excited. Yeah. So find a therapist that will literally listen, and not just listen where they sit there with your notes and take notes and never say a word, but that are like, okay, wait a minute, let me back you up there right now. I'm trying to follow you. What was that part where? See, that's listening. To really get in there with the details of, okay, I lost you on this one. Go back. Not just to say, in your mind, well, I lost him. And that's fine. Just let him keep talking. It's good for him. It's good for him. Nonsense.
Correct, yeah.
My experience. It's not good for him.
Yeah.
What's good for him is that you're with him.
With them on that journey.
You're with them on the journey. And then you can insert some ideas, because you guys are extremely knowledgeable. Insert some ideas and things you've learned, but always honor the patient, the sufferer, that they're the expert at them. I've had really hip therapists and hip psychiatrists say to me, yeah, let them finish talking. Because it's the temptation, and I get it. You guys study hard to understand this stuff, and the temptation is, aha, I know what that one is.
Yeah.
Bam, I got it. OCD is so convoluted, so weird, so many different twists and turns and paradoxes, counterintuitive nature of it. It's not an aha, I got it. It's like, wait a minute, let me follow you. So if I'm talking to people, I'm like, okay, so tell me that again. Is it because you feel this that happens, or is it because you're more of this when that happens? Because
Yes.
it's so subtle.
Yep.
Well, and you'll lose them. And in the minute, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Keep going.
So the minute you lose them, the minute you lose me as a suffering patient, I go back into shame and isolation, and it's over.
Yeah, you feel like a door was closed.
Door was closed. And I'm back in my dark spot, and nothing you can do.
Yeah. So hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, I couldn't think of anything better to say than horse.
Good, man. Well, it's better
the
than me. I was
Sansone
rapping
mouth.
earlier.
Yeah. Well, we could put it all together. We got ourselves a gig.
Right.
But I mean, that's from a clinician's perspective, and that's a lot of times what we need to hear is what it's like for someone who's been through it to actually understand. And like for you with the note cards, right?
Yeah.
You're like, that's one thing I didn't try, and it's like that's a door that was opened. And so also on that side is sometimes we as clinicians need to not think, well, they've probably already tried this, but, because you never know.
Really good point. Can I tell you?
Yeah,
chances are they haven't.
Exactly.
Even if they were introduced to it, because they're so preoccupied with their pain that even if they were introduced to it, they probably gave it a 6% effort.
So sometimes more and more they hear it, they might try it.
Well, here's the one thing that I want to do when I'm able to do this more full time is I believe a mindset change on the front end. What I mean by mindset change, it's what you pointed to earlier. Do you kind of get excited about it? See, ERP is great, but if the person is not excited about becoming anxious on purpose, weird words, then ERP ain't going to work. They're going to drop out. That's why there's a 25 to 40% dropout rate. ERP is successful as all get out as long as they stay in it.
You stay with it, you stay motivated.
But a tremendous amount don't. So what I want to do is actually I formed a product called MAP and trademarked it, and also GMAC. MAP is motivational anxiety preparation, and GMAC is gather, motivate. I don't know. I don't have it all. I haven't looked at it in some time, but I've
it's on the website.
I've
though,
got
right?
the product. Yes, MAP and GMAC. So my point is, it's the mindset change on the front end. What I think is lacking in therapy, and I can't believe you said it because most people don't say it, is getting excited about it on the front end. I remember I said it to a therapist one, and he goes, I don't know, getting excited about it. First, you got to kind of figure out where you're going. It's like, okay, you just killed my only fire.
Yeah.
Don't kill the spark, whatever it is, even if it's not consistent with the book. But I will say what the book needs to have, in my opinion, as a sufferer, is the motivation, the mindset shift to how do we motivate and inspire and excite them to want to walk into the ghost. When you see a ghost, Alan Watts, there's another dude I love to listen to, is Alan Watts, W-A-T-T-S. When you see a ghost, walk right into it, and it will disappear.
Boom.
Perfect metaphor for OCD and anxiety and thoughts and germs, and walk right into it. We were petrified to walk into it. What do you mean? So if you can motivate and inspire and excite people to want to do that, you got to pump them and prep them before ERP. Look, this is going to bring you your life back. I tell people that at group. I said, what do you want? What do you want? They're complaining about the way it is. I say, what do you want?
Exactly.
I know the way it is, but what do you want?
Yep. What's that vision
They're
out there?
They're like,
see?
And I was the same way. Everybody, we're like, what? I don't really. And if they're honest, they'll say, it's a tough question. I don't know. And I said, it's one we need to answer. I know where you're at. Forget it for a minute. What do you want? And then they'll say, well, I want to be free of this. How bad? See, if you guys could have more of these conversations, how bad do you want to be free on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 is the most. How bad? 10? Oh, then it sounds to me like you'll be willing to do some things that are challenging to get there, right?
It should be, heck yeah.
Now you're moving them.
Yeah.
You got to move their spirit. You can't just teach their mind.
Yeah,
They
the
got to be
spirit is
motivated.
such a big part of it.
But
right?
see, you said it at the beginning of this. You said, "Do you ever get excited?" That's the key.
Yeah. Yep.
Without
Change.
that, it doesn't happen.
Yep. Excited for change.
Wow. Okay, I want to keep talking to you.
Yeah, I like
Excited for change.
Well,
you mind if I use that?
Yeah. Hey, quote me. You can quote me. Well, and a lot of times that's where you always hear like, well, people don't like change, right? But the reality is, isn't change kind of fun? It might create anxiety, but look where we're at as a world because of change. Look at where we're at as individuals. How many of us don't want to be the same person we were at age 20?
Oh,
well, I might be able to stay up later, but other than that, like we want to change. And the experiences that we get throughout time, it's all because of change.
Exactly. So true. And we're made to fear change. So right there, you're so right. But getting excited about recovery. And what is recovery? Recovery isn't give me a pill to make me feel good. Recovery isn't, oh, you don't have anything to worry about your worries. Those aren't rational. That's the opposite of recovery. Recovery is, okay, you ready to fight?
Yep.
Excuse me?
Yep.
You ready to fight?
And get through it.
Because in order to beat this, you got to go into it. And I promise you, therapists don't like to give guarantees, and I understand, but I give them because I'm not bound.
Yeah.
But I also know it because I'm it. I promise them that if they will go into it to completion, they will come out of it. Their fear will leave. If you challenge it, what makes OCD run? OCD is a playground bully. What makes a playground bully stop chasing you?
Fighting back.
How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And the first step,
Like Christmas Story, perfect time.
Perfect
Christmas
time.
Story, that little kid.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the first, yes, thank you. And the first step is stop running. The second step is, like you just said, fight back, which means go towards it.
Exactly.
Well, if I do that, I'll die, because that's how OCD feels. That's why my book is called Commit Emotional Suicide.
Yeah, so let's talk about what led you to writing.
That's what it feels
this
like,
book.
emotional suicide. If you go into it, you feel like you'll die. And the therapist said to me, you have to be willing, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, this is it.
You have to be willing to do what feels like emotional suicide over and over and over again until it no longer feels like emotional suicide, and then you are free.
Amazing. Yeah, the title, Commit Emotional Suicide, makes perfect sense when you hear it explained like that. And that's what it... So for you, those note cards, right?
Yeah.
Every one of those thoughts, that was like committing emotional suicide. You're writing those down and revisiting those.
Tom, you freaking nailed it. I honestly, I'm not just saying this because we're talking. You are the quickest I have ever spoke to in your field. That really, really grabs this immediately, quickly at its core to the bottom line. I'm not just pumping you.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
You're really, really good. What you just said is exactly true. You may want to repeat it because I just overshadowed it. Sorry. Sorry.
No, we'll record it over and over again, and we'll replay you saying that. But no, so for people and that fear, describe, okay, so for you to dive into some of your worst fears, right? Like, what does that feel like to like go after it? What is that at the core? What does that feel like?
So, okay, let me deviate for 1 second because I'm going here. You got me pumped again. First of all, I'm really watching myself because part of my style when I talk about this stuff is I use profanity. And the reason I do is because it's really, really hard to it's not. I used to think that my vocabulary was limited, but I don't think it's that. I think it's hard to really put the visceral feeling into words. And so I'm not using profanity on here because nobody gave me the okay, so I won't. But what I'm saying is now you're talking at it. When you said, what is the feeling like? This is where in group I will use certain language to help bring that message home, and people's eyes open up. It's like, oh, I get it, because you just said it that way. But I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to be challenged and do it the right way.
See, another challenge.
And do another challenge.
Exactly.
So the bottom line is, what does that feel like? What that feels like when I go into that fear. It takes my breath away from my fearful standpoint. It feels like I'm going to die. It feels like I'm a 3-year-old with that feeling in my stomach, like I'm a 3-year-old and I got no power and I got no strength and I'm nothing but vulnerable. And this is freaking me out. But here comes the distinction. I'm being vulnerable on purpose.
Boom.
Boom. Where's the power then?
Yep.
You still don't feel powerful, but there's something when you know you're doing it on purpose that creates your words an excitement about doing it. Have you ever been excited to be petrified?
Isn't that a wild way of looking at that?
Yes,
Excited
sir.
to be petrified.
And that's what it morphs into. And you will get your life back, brother. You will get your life back. When you become excited to be petrified for as long as petrified decides to stay around, freedom is yours. It's really, really true.
That's awesome. That is a great description. Because I think sometimes the general public doesn't get it.
No.
And then even sometimes when you're in it, you can't describe it. So writing the book, Commit Emotional Suicide, was that therapeutic in some way for you as well, too?
Oh, my word, yes. Everything I do is therapeutic for me when we talk about this. That's why I thank you so much for this opportunity. This is nothing but free therapy for me. You know, just my talking about it, just my writing the book, my groups, I do my groups for free, and everybody's like, oh, my God, thank you so. And I said, look, I'm done BSing in my life, okay? After OCD knocked me on my tail, I'm about being honest now. Don't thank me. This does so much for me. And I used to hear people say that. I'm like, I wouldn't a line of BS. They're just being humble. They're being modest. It's the truth. I really do. I love when somebody calls me up when they're struggling about OCD. Not because they're struggling, but because it makes mine better.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is therapeutic to write it. People think, oh, I don't want to think about that stuff on purpose. Let me tell you something. Thinking about it on purpose, don't fall for the bluff that's how you die. That's how you live. We're not talking about thinking it on purpose on cognitive OCD, on how to figure it out. We're not talking about thinking about it on purpose on how to figure it out. No, leave it undone. Leave it unfinished. Go unready. Bring the threat to you on purpose, on an index card, in your mind, whatever. Bring it to you on purpose. Get yourself feeling vulnerable and scared on purpose, and then go out into the scary world. Go unready. Go unready. Go unclean. Go unsafe. These feelings, that's how it feels. Go unsafe. Go fearful. Go do what feels like emotional suicide. Go do what feels like you would die if you did this. And go do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And Tom, what happens when you do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again?
Confidence.
Yeah, man. Confidence. And you got confidence because you're no longer afraid of it. It's called habituation, right? Habituation. You've habituated to it. It's like being in a swimming pool that's kind of cold. You stay in there for 45 minutes. It's no longer cold. Did somebody turn the heat on?
Yeah. Nope. Same thing.
You got used to it.
Yep.
So we have an overactive amygdala, which is where our anxiety comes from. Everything's a 5-alarm fire. So we have to condition it that it's not. So it's just like staying in the water until it warms. Stay in the threat until it neutralizes. That's how you beat this thing.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's how I beat it.
And that's how many others can do it too.
I've learned, yeah.
And, when you mentioned, and I think that's the other important thing, you mentioned the brain, right? Part of the body. And until we as a community, region, state, country, society begins to think of mental health as a health issue, and it's just no different than any other health issue. And sometimes you got to go get help, right?
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And
Thank you.
We're growing, getting more and more people to understand that, but it's a health issue. No one you did not want this,
No.
right? You didn't want this. Wasn't a choice.
But I blamed myself for it. I blamed myself for it. That's what everybody does. You don't blame yourself for high cholesterol. Well, maybe if you're eating cheeseburgers all the time.
Yeah, but
you
still.
don't, but still,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, it's genetic. Everybody else can eat them.
It's genetic.
Yeah, but you don't.
No, you're
you
pulling
don't
up my issues. But anyway,
we don't blame ourselves for high blood pressure. We don't blame ourselves for diabetes. We don't blame ourselves for getting a cold or allergies or allergic to this food or that food.
Exactly.
But we sure do blame ourselves with any mental challenges or problems, like health problem. It's a health problem.
It's a health problem. Yeah.
To be dealt with.
Yeah. Because we all have our own mental health baseline. Everybody has a mental health.
Yeah.
Some of us are dealing with a mental illness, but the reality is we're all there. And until and we, like you mentioned, cholesterol and diabetes, we don't make fun of or shame people for having those, do we?
Nope.
Ever, right?
And they don't shame themselves.
No, exactly. So that's the other mantra we have to get to with ourselves and with each other, that we can't do that anymore.
That is really, as you well know, huge, because that is shame. Shame, what made this grow in me was isolation and shame. Isolated from people, hid it, resisted it, which I hid it. I kept it a secret, which fed on shame. And shame, because I felt like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
Yep.
Wrong question. Better question is, if you want to, what's wrong? It's not with it. You're implied as the wrongdoer. What's wrong with me? I was implied that it was me. It was a weakness. It was me. And you nailed it. It is not. It just is. It's a help. You don't blame yourself if you get a virus or you got to go to the doctor and get an antibiotic.
It just happens.
It just happens.
Yeah.
So another way of saying what's wrong with me, though, I love this. Powerful questions are also key for recovery. We think answers are powerful questions that allow the mind to dwell. Like, what is so? What's wrong with me? What's wrong? What's so? What a beautiful, freeing question. If someone said to me a therapist when I was at my worst, and they said, Gregg, they probably did, but I was too ashamed to admit it. But they say, Gregg, what's so for you? Oh my God.
Wow.
What a gift.
Yeah.
What's so for me? And I'd be like, what do you work really hard at not trying to let out?
Talk about making you think.
What's just so? What's just right there that if you didn't have to prevent this, that it takes no energy and no effort at all. See, we think it takes so much energy and effort to get better. It really doesn't. It takes so much energy and effort to stay sick.
Yes. Yeah. And and that question opens the door up as well too, for allow you to then share.
Yeah. And they may not know. They may not know what's so, because they're in such denial. But that's the inquiry. And also, I would encourage people, write. The word journal implies something in my mind, so I don't like the word, but I love the word write. My wife got me on it. Just write. Just grab a notebook and just write. Write what? Write anything. Write it not to be reread. Write it not for someone else to read it. Because why is this? Right. Because you'll start to uncover what's so for you.
Yeah, and there's no parameters around it. You
There's
don't
nothing.
worry about the English
Is that
part of
beautiful?
it. Yeah, yeah. My daughter's school has her doing that at times, and they're like, you don't worry about how it looks. We're not grading it. You just start writing. And I'm like, that's actually a pretty cool way of looking at it.
I mean, that is the best feeling no real pleasure that I know of that exists out there. The way we get pleasure in life, like a fantastic meal or, anything like that, can equal that feeling, that pleasure of freedom that can come from writing, that can come from allowing, that can come from accepting, but that can come from do absolutely nothing, including prevent or protect. Don't protect yourself. OCD, another good analogy, is your thoughts everything's trying to hug you. Imagine like this, like everything's trying to hug you. All these forces are trying to hug you. You're not clean. What if God this? What if God that? What if you don't sleep tonight? What if you get rejected? What if your palms are sweaty? What if you blush? What if any OCD thing? Mm-hmm. What if you go to hell? What if you got all these things wanting to hug you? Hug none of them back. I heard that on a video. Muji was his name, a spiritual guru guy. Hug none of them back. Don't touch it.
Don't embrace it. Yeah.
With your energy. Mm-hmm. Allow it. But don't use your energy to hold it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
This is
Commit Emotional Suicide, the book. Where can you find it? Where could someone buy something like this?
Yes. Back in my car for $10.
Oh, right.
The other, I always try to carry them there. I give them away all the time. But Amazon has got it. My website, GregorySansone.com.
Beautiful. So we can go to there to look that up. Amazing conversation today on Mental Health Matters with Mr. Gregg Sansone. Man, wow, great stuff, Greg. I think you did a great job with. I mean, some of the stuff I'm taking away is one, just kind of the way you described what it feels like, and to give people that understanding that have no clue that that's what people suffer with, and sometimes we can be out there in society and people can look down on others and are like, why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Why don't you just start working, all this stuff. And until people like you can put those things into words, others can't understand. So I think you've done a great job today with breaking down stigma, acknowledging the realities of mental health, mental illness. I think hearing about exposure response prevention and what worked for you, from writing to just facing and challenging yourself and running to it, instead of running away from it. Some amazing stuff we've got today. With that being said, Mental Health Matters. Check us out on stlouiscounseling.org. You're going to see this podcast there. You're going to see it on our social media. You're going to be able to download it as well, too. We might be able to get it on your website as well, too. But we are once again very happy to have you as a guest. We continue to break down stigma in our region. We continue to offer services in our 8 office locations and our school partnership program. And for those of you listening out there, don't forget Giving Tuesday is coming up November 27th. And we are going for 20 matches of $1,300. I don't know how I said that, but $1,300 for each match to match our board of directors. $1,300 covers one full course of treatment for somebody in need. So that's 12 free sessions that we can offer people. So look us up on our website to donate or contact Debbie Dugan, 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 at ccstl.org. And once again, thank you, Greg. And we will be seeing you guys all soon.
Thank you so much. Is it appropriate, because I would like to, if it's okay for me to leave my phone number?
Hey,
I like to do that for people that are suffering. 636-236-2267.
Visit the website as well,
GregorySansone.com. And for anybody that is that is looking for this, what my goal is, my passion is to do this every day of my life.
sharing this and helping and reaching. So in any way that I can do that, I'm completely available. Thank you so much, Tom. Really fantastic. You have a tremendous amount to offer, and you really do. You're quick as heck with this stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it like I'm an expert, but I'm saying it like I'm a patient sufferer who's been in therapy for 35 years. Okay.
I think there's some expertise to that. So,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And we will see you on the next episode of Mental Health Matters.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.